tuning in, and I know that it will be worth your effort because gnocchis are just, they really are a comfort food and they're exotic, but don't be afraid. They're really, really, really easy. So I think you all have recipes. Okay, so if any of you have taken my classes, you know that I always change things and I always do things differently. But rest assured, this is a stock recipe. The only thing that I'm going to change for today is something that I quite discovered by chance just last week. It was really delicious. I got a hold of some chestnuts, and I don't know if you know, chestnuts need to be boiled and opened and all these other things. They're expensive, but I got a good price on them. And I've been experimenting with all the things with chestnuts. So I made chestnut flour, which is I took the chestnuts, I put them in my food processor, ground them up. They don't get as fine because of the oil, all the oils in them. So I toasted those chopped up chestnuts, and then I put them in the oven and toasted them. And then I put them in the food processor again. And this is what we have, chestnut flour. So these gnocchis are really special because you have to use potatoes. Yes, you must use potatoes. Don't prefer the white potatoes. I prefer sweet potatoes. So today are going to be sweet potato and chestnut flour. You can make this with white flour, spelt flour, whole wheat flour, any kind of flour you want, or the chestnuts will make it gluten-free. So if you have any gluten-free people there. So the recipe calls for 10 ounces of white potato. You want to use a russet potato because a russet has less moisture in it. Now, I do something that's a little bit more effort, but I really think that it's worth it. I bake my potatoes. Many gnocchi recipes will tell you boil them. Well, if the whole idea is to keep moisture out of them, why would you boil them? You're just putting more water in. So I take the extra time to put them in the oven and bake them, which I have one sweet potato already that is already cooked. Now let me see how my other one's doing. Oh, pretty darn good, pretty good. So what I did was, it calls for 14 ounces of sweet potato and 10 ounces of white potato. I measured these. I have a scale. You don't have to measure them. This is a sweet potato that's about 6 inches long, and this is one that's about half as big. And I just get a white potato that's a little less. And here's my white potato that's a little less in size. No big deal. So I'll cut them open because the biggest problem is that they're hot. And you might even be able to see the steam right there, so you know that they're really hot.
Adele, are your weights after baking and ricing, or is it before you bake and rice it? The weights on the
Oh, the
recipe.
weight before. Yeah. So, but it's not that exacting. I don't think you need to be worried about that. In fact, for years I never used a scale, and I promise you, my grandmother never used a scale in her whole life. So this is a ricer. And you can also use a Foley mill that goes around like this. And that, in some respects, that's easier because you can put a larger quantity of the potatoes in at a time. Okay. So I'm going to get an egg ready. It's only one egg.
Adele, what are some other things we can use if we don't have a ricer?
If you don't have a ricer, you could get a colander and push it through a colander.
Okay.
Especially if you have one of the old-fashioned ones with the little round holes in them. But you know, I have several of these ricers, and I pick them up at secondhand stores. No, No, Sherry, your sound is off. But I know what you're trying to say. You're asking me if you can use a grater.
Right.
No.
No.
But anything with little holes in it.
Okay, I know.
And this would not work too well. This is a sieve. That won't work. The other thing you're going to realize, and that's why when you buy one of, yes, that would work, Sherry. That would work. It's just going to be harder for you.
Okay.
So I guess I would say if this is something you really want to do, keep on the lookout for a used one. Go on eBay. Okay, so I'm going to.
I'm going to try to do this with you. So should I? push
Yes,
these
Mark,
through
that's
now?
exactly. Mark, you could do that.
Adele,
Okay, you can use that one for sure.
I have a hand potato masher with circles in it. Would that work?
Okay, Jen, you need to turn up your volume. I can't hear you.
I have a hand potato masher with circles in it.
Nope, that won't work. And you will see in a minute. So I'm going to put the potatoes in here. Sweet potatoes are much softer than the white potatoes, which I like. So I already washed my hands for all this. I guess you can see that I'm just cleaning out. Also, by the way, I like to eat the potato skins afterwards because I buy organic potatoes and they taste so good. Why throw them away? Okay, so now here we go. Can you see it coming through? And I kind of, since I'm using two different kinds of potatoes, I kind of fill it up with some white potato and also some of the sweet potato. And the other thing you could do, especially with if you're using all white potatoes, you ever go and buy potato skins when we used to go out and hang out at bars and have drinks and little tapas and things? If you've ever ordered baked potato skins, you could just take this potato skin, put it in the oven with some cheese, bacon bits, broccoli, whatever you want, bake it in the oven. Don't throw it away. So I'm going to do another little batch here.
Is it a mushy consistency that comes out of the ricer? Mhm.
Yes, because if it's too hard, it's going to be really difficult for you to put through the ricer. So that's why. And if you boil them, it'll be soft, but it'll also be more watery. So I've packed this little ricer. That the object of the ricer as opposed to the masher or any other way is just the way that it separates it. Because you want air in this. That's what's going to make them very light and delicate, is having that air. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt in. Maybe a little bit more because I always feel like potatoes don't have enough, you know, flavor to them. Now, the thing that you want to do is you don't want to put this small amount of egg into this large, this is at room temperature, into this large amount of hot potato. Because if you do that, what's going to happen, and it's steaming away like crazy, you're going to have a piece of egg cooked in the midst of your potato. So what I'm doing is I'm tempering the egg, which means I bring a little bit in at a time until I equalize that egg nice and slowly so that the egg is warm because I'm adding the hot potato. And then I'm going to mix this together. So I had someone that I was showing how to make gnocchis to just last week. And I guess I didn't make it clear that you're working with hot. So she let the potatoes get cold and then she made them. And what happened was they came out very dense. So what we're doing now is everything to ensure that our gnocchi is going to be nice and soft. So I'm starting, this is the chestnut flour, but you could use any kind of flour you want. I've mixed the egg. I'm putting in 1 cup first because calling for 2 cups of flour all together. And just 1 second here because what we're doing today is if in fact I get through this whole section of the gnocchis before the hour and a half, I'm going to show you how to make Roman gnocchis, which are really easy and can be either made with semolina flour or corn flour and if cornmeal. And if that's the case, then you end up with a gluten-free again. So I just want to make sure I stay ahead of this and put some milk on. Just a moment. By the way, I really enjoy being able to do this in my own kitchen. Okay, so I'm making a little well here, and I'm going to start to mix this all together. Whenever you're working with flour, whether it be white flour or the nut flour that I'm using, it's good to have a little extra flour right nearby. And so that's why at this very second I'm going to go get myself white flour to have nearby. Just because once you start to get your hands dirty, it's very difficult to go and get something else. So I'm going to start to work my dough together. And notice I'm trying to act very lightly with this. I'm not pushing it a lot. I'm not squishing it in my fingers. I'm just moving it about. It's pretty moist. So you can imagine if I had done this with boiled potatoes, would be even more so. And so I'm just blending this now. I'm blending my chestnut flour in. I hope you're okay with it. It's just that I'm going through all this work right now. And last week when I did these chestnut ones, they were so outrageously delicious that you're not all here to share this with me, but I am going to have to share it with someone. And also I am going to have to eat some myself. So it's still pretty moist. And
The gnocchis will freeze well, right?
pardon?
The gnocchis will freeze well.
You know, yes, they do. And I'll show you the point at which you can freeze them. The only thing, now this is still pretty wet. I don't want to add any more chestnut flour, so I added white flour. I'm trying to just work them together now. When I freeze them, and I'll show you how I do that, because I will be freezing some now. You don't need that many gnocchis. Like, you know, for Italians, a gnocchi is going to be a primo, a first course. So you don't need more than, you know, five or eight at the most for one portion. If you're having it as a main course, yes, you probably would need at least a dozen each. Okay, so I'm just working in enough flour here. And I'm looking at, now this dough you're going to see with lots of different colors in it because we have the white potato, the sweet potato, and also the nuts, and then the white flour. So what you want to do is take a small amount, and this is the art form of the gnocchi. I'm taking it, I'm rolling it out, nice little log here. I have extra schmutz on my fingers here. I just take them and I wouldn't put my hands in water necessarily right now because then it'll just make a goopy mess. Okay, so I'm cleaning this off. putting this together. Take a knife, and I'm cutting them a little less than a ½ inch apart. Sometimes what happens is when you're using this sweet potato, the sweet potato has fibers and it looks like you've got some air caught in it, but it's just the fiber of the sweet potato.
We just missed that,
Can
what
you-
you last
Can you,
said.
sorry, when you walked away, I couldn't hear. Could you say that?
I'm sorry.
When you walked away, we couldn't quite hear what you said. What was that
Oh.
last part?
Okay. I forget. Oh, I think I said just, I forget what I said. But anyway, so this is the art form of making gnocchis. And there's also called cavateles. So I have a little piece of, this is a gnocchi board. I looked at them recently and you can buy them quite large, but I think I found this at a secondhand store. You take your 2 first fingers and you just roll it along like that. Can you see? So it's like a little shell. And I do that again. And you want to keep your hands nice and with flour, or you can use your thumb too. I find it more difficult with my thumb, but what you want to do is just take that dough, whoops, and move it along so that you have like a shell almost, a snail shell. And then I put them on a nice cookie sheet because and I do have water here. Yep. We're going to boil some. And for this, we're going to have a very, very simple sauce because gnocchis, number one, they're soft in texture, they're light. You don't want to have, especially with the sweet potato and the nut, you want to taste that flavor. So I would not put like a meat sauce on this or anything. I wouldn't even put a heavy red sauce. If I were using a red sauce, it would be what I call a salsa rosa, which is like jarred tomato sauce, some cream or half and half, and Parmesan cheese. That's it. But for today, we're going to do something, you can't get more simple than this. It's a butter sage sauce, and it's burnt butter. How many times have you burnt butter and said, what do I do now? Well, guess what? Go back and make gnocchis because a burnt butter and sage sauce is so easy and delicious with these particular pastas. How are we doing for those of you who are making these at home?
Great.
Okay, good. That's what I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear some feedback here. Okay, so I'm doing that. They just take time. That's all. They do take time. So are any of you at the same place that I am right now?
Yes.
Everybody is muted, so. Sherry, Mark, I see you're doing it too. Are you eating raw dough, Sherry? I can't hear you, but are you eating raw dough? That has egg in it. Do you want to get sick? I can't hear you.
I said it's okay. I won't die. It's okay. You're not responsible. It's okay.
Oh, good. I think Barbara was worried about that for a minute, right?
I didn't know what to do with this. Look at my hands.
We're gonna try the Roman.
And I wanted to let you know, I'm actually doing it with a flaxseed eggs. I'm trying to make them plant-based. And I've made gnocchi in the past, but never vegan. So I'll let you know how it comes out.
I'm sorry, what did you just say? It was
Using
joy, right?
Yes, I'm using flaxseed instead of the egg because I'm trying to make them vegan. So I'll let you know how it comes out.
You mean you just put flaxseed in it?
Well, no, you use flaxseed with water and you let it sit for a while, and that's an egg substitute. So I'm trying.
Okay, well, you'll have to let me, is it holding together?
So far, so good. We'll see when it cooks, how it is.
Oh, yes, because that's the second part. Okay, so speaking of which, you said cooked. So you're going to continue doing that, right? Because you're making your gnocchis. You can stop at any time right now. I have the water boiling, and I'm going to put them in to cook, okay? I'm probably going to turn this a little bit so you can see my stove here. Let me just turn around for a minute, wash my hands, okay?
And so Adele, can you hear me?
1 second, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I just had to get all that stickiness off.
Oh, it's so sticky.
It is. So you need more flour, Sherry. If it's that sticky, you need more flour.
I'm
And
trying to knead it in. Is that what I do?
no, I didn't say knead it in. You just really want to mix it in with your fingertips very lightly. Very lightly. Okay, so we're going to have the boiling water. And I would do this. It's boiling. With any pasta, you heavily salt the water right before you put the pasta in. And so I take my tray and I'm just going to throw them in. You know, again, with any pasta, you want to have a large proportion of water to pasta. And with delicate pastas like this, like raviolis, you don't want it to be on a ferocious boil. So I'm going to watch this. It's going to come up to boil. At the same time, I'm going to burn the butter. Yay, team, love to burn the butter. Because it's so permissible. And a little bit of nutmeg, fresh nutmeg. And sage. Now, what I do, this might look pathetic, but this is my sage from the garden that I just bring inside.
That's great.
And then I'll have fresh sage. It really kills me to spend.
Will the nutmeg that you put in there, is that a nutmeg powder or do you freshly grate it? Or can you use
Thank
both?
you for that question. I would never use, well, I can't say never, but if my life depended on it, I would use a pre-grated nutmeg. But fresh nutmeg is so wonderful and it has such pleasant childhood memories for me. Now
Adele, do you really mean a half a nutmeg?
No. But you know what just happened, folks? This is terrible. Look what happened.
They fell apart.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. My gnocchis fell apart. They absolutely fell apart. I don't like that at all. Wonder why that happened. I don't like that.
So if I don't have a gnocchi board, how can I make the shell shape?
Well, you can practice doing it like this. Within the palm of your hand and your 2 fingers. You can try that. But what I'm really concerned about now is like what happened. And this is such a huge amount of, I'm going to try it again. Maybe they were too warm when they went in. I just tried to put 1 in there. This is very upsetting because I can't tell you how expensive that flour is. I'm going to look for it.
So if I actually bought chestnut flour, I could just use that for part of it.
You could use what?
Chestnut flour, if I bought the
Do you
flour.
have it?
I have some in the freezer.
Yes, you could use the chestnut flour, but I'm just wondering why I messed up like this. I feel like a fool. trying to find out where this one went that I put in here. If it disintegrated too, then. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do then. I'm not going to make any more until I put another egg in. Because the egg will be the binding. So I'm worried now about doing this as a vegan. So I'm just going to make a little extra egg right here, right now. We're going to test this out. It did work the other day, I promise you. I'm going to throw this water out and start with more boiling water. Because assuming that this will work once I put the egg in, I don't want to put it in dirty salted water. Okay, well, we're going to start this over again.
And the recipe you gave us, it was more egg than you used, I think.
Oh, well, then that's why I copied it wrong. How many eggs did it say? 3?
It says 1 whole egg plus 1 egg yolk.
Well,
So
That
not a
would
lot, but
that would make a difference. Okay. So don't listen to what I did. I copied it down wrong. So I'm just going to keep moving here. Okay. I'm going to try it again. Again, I have my hands all sticky.
Adele, when you're facing that way, we can't hear you. Just as
Oh,
a heads up.
okay. Well, I still didn't pair that headset that I bought for this with my laptop. My daughter said that there's problems with it. Great. If there's problems, I'm going to have it, but sounds like at least a couple of you are more technological than I am. And that's why we pay Barbara the big bucks here, because she's the master of the switchboard. Okay. I think the worst part about gnocchis is the stickiness that happens with the dough.
really sticky.
So let's see. Try it again.
Oh, I see.
Let me go wash my hands again before I make those little. Okay. So I'm going to try this again. Roll a nice little snake. Cut your little pieces. A little flour on my gnocchi board. Again, making this little guy. Where is my? Here we go. I'm going to use a smaller board because I'm only cooking enough for me to eat. If you were here, I would be happy to cook some for you, but it's just me. A little extra flour. Now, someone asked, can you freeze gnocchis? Yes. And what I would do if I were freezing these is I would take them on this little board, either a cookie sheet, or I have a little plastic tray here, depending on the size of your freezer. And I put them in the freezer individual like this. And then once they're all frozen in little nuggets, I take a nice, whoops, on the floor, a nice plastic container and line it with wax paper and put those between the different layers and put them in the freezer. But I don't put them, lots of times I'll put stuff in a freezer bag, but I'm afraid to do it with the gnocchis because they're very fragile. And so when they're frozen, somebody bumps them in the oven, in the freezer, they'll break. And as you can see, they're quite a bit of work to do this. So anyway, let's see how the water is doing here again. And hopefully this will be better. Not boiling yet, guys.
Excuse me, Adele. My water is boiling and I'm about to put them in. How many would you recommend I put in at a time and how long should they go in for?
Well, they're going to float to the top. They won't stay in there more than 3 minutes, depending on what your proportion of water to gnocchi or pasta dough is.
Okay.
So, but did you salt the water?
I just salted it and it shouldn't be at a full rolling boil though, just a gentle
Right.
boil.
Don't let it get that, because if it gets too rigorous, it'll just break them.
Okay, wish me luck.
And I almost forgot that I wanted to put, oh, I want to put it in here. Okay. So I burnt the butter. We'll take a look at that. Nicely burnt butter. I'm going to put in some fresh nutmeg because I love fresh nutmeg. And actually, this is for nutmeg, or this is what my family used to use years ago for grating Parmesan cheese. But I don't know about you. I find it a pain to grate Parmesan cheese. So I cut mine into lumps like this, little pieces, like ½ inch or something. And I put them in my food processor. And it works just fine. Now, I have a Cuisinart. I also had a little bit, like it was called like an Oscar. So it's a tiny one. It has a different blade structure. No, it broke the blade. So only with a Cuisinart will it work. Okay, so mine is boiling. So, and I'm putting in the, and I'm going to pray that this works now. Okay? Much better. And I'm going to lower it because, like we said, we don't want it to be too ferocious. The other thing
So how
is
do we know they're cooked?
they'll come up to the top. Yes, this is much
So whenever
better. So that's a word to the wise. If you start to make your gnocchis and they fall apart in the boiling water, you didn't put in enough egg. Which, Joy, that might be your problem if in fact the vegan solution doesn't hold it together well enough. But you're going to let us know in a couple minutes here.
So far, so good.
All right, that's good to know. Woo-hoo. I want to see yours, so can you show me at some point? Okay, so mine have come
Well,
up.
here's a ½ dozen gnocchi. They just came out of the water.
Yours did. Okay, great. Do you want to burn some butter or?
It's melting now.
Okay, so mine are at the top also. By the way, I love this shape and handle of a sieve because when I'm cooking any sort of pasta, if you just give the pasta a turn like centrifugal force, you can just go in there and pick up these little pillows and they are perfect. They are perfect.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to do this. So you're getting my personal preference. I like to have these with a little more crisp to them. So personally, I don't like them when they're just mushy like this. So I always like to put mine on a frying pan with a little bit of butter anyway. And what's good about this is, let's say you were having company for dinner and you wanted to make the gnocchis ahead of time, but yet you don't want to eat them cold. You can have them be on a tray at room temperature and then just basically heat them up in the pan with the water. Or if you want to add sauce to it, then you can do that too. So, and then we're just going to put on a little bit of nutmeg, which I put in the water already. I mean, in the butter. And I'm going to put some cheese on it in a minute. Does that sound?
So how much was your little bit of nutmeg?
Oh, well, I only have like 8 in here. So, I think I scraped it 4 times. But I love nutmeg. It can't be too much.
Well, until it gets to be hallucinogenic. Too much nutmeg will. All right, so well burnt.
And then they
What's the?
I guess we'll be doing it in another hour.
Okay, so they came out great so far.
Did you put them in any butter yet?
No, I'm actually going to use a red sauce. I wasn't going to do a butter one, but I'll let you know. So I'm going to try them in a minute.
Okay, good.
Here, actually, can you?
So this is the first time that anyone in any of the very nice, any of the virtual classes has cooked along with. So now there's 3 of you cooking along. Okay, Mark, yes?
Yeah, so I've got gnocchi with butter sauce and some Parmesan on them.
Okay, and are you going to?
They're quite good. They taste like gnocchi.
Well, they should. Especially when you don't forget the extra egg. I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, wait, did we put the sage in? No. You have to put the sage. It's the
I
sage
did.
butter. You did?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, well, I didn't, so now I am.
Sage.
What is it that sage is supposed to do for you?
Do you want to have more before I put more?
You can have those. I have a few more here.
Mark, did you sound like you know more about herbs?
About what?
What herbs? What's the significance of the sage?
I don't know other than flavor.
Okay.
Oh, that looks great, Joy. My
And
goodness.
that's also my plant-based. I make a Parmesan out of cashews and stuff. So I'm about to taste it. We'll see how it goes.
You make Parmesan
Looks
cheese
delicious.
out of cashews?
Yeah.
That looks great.
That looks great.
Yeah.
Here you
Sherry,
go.
where are yours?
I'm getting a fork.
Still rolling them.
Joy, can you show yours again?
You don't have to roll all of them, just enough for you to eat right now.
Okay, I haven't boiled my water yet, so.
Okay, that.
Oh, beautiful.
Joy, if you have a goat cheese cashew recipe, I would love to hear about that.
I do.
I want to know too.
When you do a red sauce, Adele,
Yeah.
you talked about a light one, like a Roja.
No, I said you would take I take just regular red sauce. If I make it myself, great. If not, I'll get it, a marinara sauce. I love Delamore sauce. And about half and half, I mix either light cream or half and half. Okay. And I mix that, warm it all up, and pour it on top with some Parmesan cheese.
I used half semolina flour and half white flour. in this. It's a little.
Are they good?
It's
How
a little,
are they?
they're
How do
good.
they taste?
They taste delicious. They're just a tiny bit stiff, I think, probably from the semolina flour.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, definitely.
Or what kind of potatoes did you use?
Sweet.
I used a russet potato and sweet potato.
And Joy, you use a sweet potato and flour? Okay.
Mm.
I used a sweet potato or russet and some flour and some white flour.
Very
And
good.
they are
All use the
soft
same
and pillowy.
quantities that were in the recipe.
They're what, Mark?
They're soft and pillowy, and I did use the quantities in the recipe,
Yeah,
except for the nutmeg. A half a nutmeg
it's huge.
is
That's
a
the
lot.
No, not a
yeah.
half. I did like 4.
Yeah, I saw that. And
But
most of
on
that's still in the
on the
bowl.
recipe, it says half a nutmeg. That's like a year's worth of nutmeg.
Yeah.
No, not for me.
Well, it's 2 tablespoons is enough to have some hallucination.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Really? Okay. All right. So, should we go on to the semolina,
Yes.
which I couldn't find semolina flour. So I've also made it, and what I'm doing today is I'm going to make it with cornmeal.
I
So-
found semolina flour at Healthy Living. And
Right,
I
but I
actually
went-
tried to find it in the bulk section of City Market, but at least at the time I was looking for it, they didn't have it.
Yeah.
They usually do.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know.
The place where I like to get it is Nadia Market, which is a Middle Eastern market on Main Street in Winooski.
Yeah.
I think
They
you
have-
told me about that place. Yeah.
They
Yeah,
have,
my semolina from the co-op, but it was a while ago, so I don't
Yeah.
know, just probably before pre-COVID.
they have
Yeah,
white and
depends. It
yellow, and
comes
they
and
have
goes.
coarse and fine. So I'm not sure which semolina you prefer, Adele.
Well, I prefer at this point any kind I can get, any kind I can get, because it's really difficult. And I even called Bob's Red Mill because I would buy some in bags from them, and it wasn't. They didn't have it, and they said we weren't going to get any for a while. So, excuse me, I'm going to go grab a whisk. So I made a half a recipe here,
Yeah, me too.
and I have taken milk, and I've cooked the milk, kept it warm this whole time, threw a little butter in. I'm going to throw a little salt in as soon as I find out where my little salt bowl went. Ah, here it is. Putting in some salt. And I'm going to take the cornmeal. And I just want to pour in a little at a time. This is the same way that you would make polenta, by the way. So a little at a time, because I made this recipe in half, so I'm only going to put in the 2
Excuse
cups
me,
of-
Adele,
What?
should we have sifted the semolina flour?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty fine anyway.
You can use a white flour instead of the semolina with the corn flour?
No, that definitely will not work. It either has to be semolina or corn because it's a much coarser grind. And think of it. Would you make a porridge? This is basically a porridge. Would you make a porridge out of white flour? So we're just going to put this in here. A little at a time because it will clump, and I like to use a wire whisk in the beginning. When it gets thicker, which it will as it's cooking, you'll want to switch to a wooden spoon. I'm going to make sure it's turned down. I have one more gnocchi to eat, sorry.
Mm.
And this is thickening. any of you made polenta?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
looks exactly the same.
Yes.
I just made the most delicious polenta soup I had never made before a couple of days ago with cannellini beans. And it was the polenta was the base of the soup. It was from the New York Times.
Yeah.
Really?
Delicious.
Okay. So next, I need to, whoops, better get just a minute. So this recipe, you know, calls for egg yolks. I never throw away my whites. I'll save them. Either 2 egg whites or 2 egg yolks equal 1 egg. So let's say I want to make some cookies. I'm all out of biscottis, which I usually keep in my freezer. So next time when I go to make a batch, what I will do is I will take these 3 egg whites and use them. I'll be generous this time and I'll say that's 1 egg. So my recipe calls for 2 full eggs. I'll use the egg whites that I have left over or the yolks and then just add regular egg to it. So now, again, what I'm going to do, oh, you know what I just forgot though? I'm making this in half. So I have the recipe. So I'm going to get rid of one of my egg yolks. And again, I'm going to temper the egg because I'm going to mix the egg, which is a small quantity at room temperature, in with some hot cooked polenta. And I'll do that a little at a time. And then I'm going to go and get once I get enough of this mixed together, I'm going to go and get a wooden spoon because that will make my life so much easier. I will say, I think that the cornmeal cooks more quickly like this than the semolina. Okay, where is my... Stirring this. Now it is thick. And the reason that it's thick is because this is going to be like a cross between a bread and a thick pasta, as you will see. What we're going to do, mix this together.
So if mine's not thickening up, do I add more semolina?
Did you add, like, did you make the full recipe or the half a recipe like I did?
I use the full recipe.
So doesn't that say that you need,
It says 2 cups of semolina and
oh,
4 cups of milk.
yes, and you know what I just did again? It's going to take a little while because what I did is I made a mistake. Another one. And I doubled the semolina proportionate to the milk. So I was wondering why this was cooking so quickly. It doesn't matter though, because what I'm going to do and what you're going to do is keep stirring it until it gets thick, which it will. And then when it's thick, you're going to put it on a board. I'll show you.
It's- It's thick, but it's not thick enough to pour out of a pan.
Yeah, we're with Mark.
So we're having the same maybe issue as Mark. We're at a watery mashed potato level of thickness.
And you added the eggs
We added 3 eggs and then the 2 cups of semolina and the
and
4
the butter. You added some
the
butter,
butter.
in.
We
Yep.
didn't have cheese yet.
So,
Oh,
so
cheese.
the cheese doesn't get added yet.
Okay.
Even the 3 tablespoons?
But I would say add another half a cup of the semolina.
I see yours is, the consistency of like wet sand almost. And
Now,
ours,
wants to be thick enough to, let me show you what we're going to do with it.
okay.
I'm going to take a board, and there's a couple of ways to do this. You can make individual little patties if you want, which I do sometimes. Or what's quicker and easier, you can do one of 2 things. You can take a little ball and make little patties, or you can press it down and cut it into squares, which is like usually the way I do. You can press it down or you can roll it out with a rolling pin. The thing about a rolling pin is it's nice because it makes it nice and even, whereas now we're using my hands, which are not as even.
So is it okay? This should be like the consistency of say like a sugar cookie dough, right?
Yeah,
no?
I mean, I'd say that this is a little stiffer than you would like. So let me just show you what this is as I'm playing with it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So this is like a cookie dough.
Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And so that's what I would do. I would take this, and I think I will roll it out just a little bit. Normally what I do is I grill this, then you can do it in a hot oven, or you know what, I've got this pan still with the butter in it. So what I might do right now is just put this in here and cook them. And once they're hot, I will take these. You can use this as an appetizer. So you could make this, and just my son-in-law loves them. He'll just eat them like this. But tonight I'm actually going to cook them, then add hot tomato sauce on top of it and some cheese. But you can also make a really nice, like a vegetarian sauce to put on top of it. Add a lot of like peppers and zucchini and eggplant and make like a campanata even. Put in olives and capers, and you can have it like almost as a main meal. You can also put on this, if you wanted to add a meat sauce, or, it's really, in Italy, it's served a lot with a rabbit sauce. Sorry for all you vegetarians out there, but I'm just cutting this. Now, if you take my classes, you learn that you learn my prejudices towards food. And one of them is I really don't like soft, mushy things. So that's why I like to second cook the gnocchis in the frying pan. And I like to do the same thing for these, they're called Roman gnocchis.
So you don't roll them into those small, like you made with the potato gnocchi?
No, these are so easy. And that's why I included them, because they are a gnocchi. They're a totally different type of gnocchi. And they're very easy to make. and they freeze well as well. You can freeze them uncooked, thaw them, and then cook them. You can put them in the frying pan here. You can put them in the oven to heat up. You can make them into big squares for, you know, a main course. Oh well, a watched gnocchi never bakes.
Adele, you just went half and half with the semolina and corn. Is that what
I'm sorry,
your
I didn't
ratios
hear.
were? When you put the corn,
Can
when you
anyone
added
else
the
hear her?
cornmeal, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
So when you did the ratios for the cornmeal, was it just half and half? You just divvied it in half?
When I made this recipe right now,
Yeah.
I put proportionately, I put in double the amount of cornmeal to flour. I mean to milk. So it's going to be denser for me. And it got thicker fast.
You only use cornmeal, or you use cornmeal and semolina?
I have never mixed the two. I don't know that that would be a problem. I've always made it either semolina or the cornmeal.
I see.
And I would have done the semolina had I found it, and I didn't have any. So these are cooking, and I'll just show you how they look when they're cooking. They're a little golden.
Yeah.
I just finished my first ones.
How was it?
They're good.
Good.
You mean you did the original gnocchi?
Yeah.
All right, pick your plate up. I can't see.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, they look lovely.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch more to cook now.
Well, unless you're going to eat them now, my suggestion is that and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to make these, put them on a tray, and freeze some and leave some in the refrigerator for tomorrow.
Okay.
But you don't want to, if you cook them, I would say you could eat them for maybe 2 days, but after that, they won't be so good.
Okay.
So if you're not going to eat them in the next 2 days, don't cook them.
Yeah.
They'll stay in the refrigerator for a few days. They'll stay in the freezer for months.
Great.
Hey, Mark, how much extra flour did you end up throwing into yours?
So far, I'm at an extra cup and a half.
Okay,
And
because
it's
we're
still
throwing a
at
lot more in ours. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, because it did call for 4. That was my mistake for copying this down on a little scrap of paper the wrong way.
So with 4 cups of milk, it should have how much semolina?
It should have 2 cups of semolina, and I put in a portion, so it should be 2 to 1, and mine was 1 to 1. So now it's probably more like 3 to 1, which will just make
So
it.
which would you
which
suggest?
way?
I'm confused as
No,
to
I
which.
like the original recipe better because it won't be as dense.
Yeah.
But
Well,
but
the
it takes more time for you to be stirring for it to get thick. I mean, that's
Right.
why when you go to eat polenta in a restaurant, it's expensive because somebody had to stand there and stir it. It's a slow cooked process here.
All right.
And you could put this in olive oil. I just used the butter here. But I think I will change because it was already in the pan. I didn't want to waste it. I'm going to put some more. I'm going to put oil in here. Because olive oil can't be bad, right?
When you use the cornmeal or the semolina, is it a strong corn flavor, or is one different from another?
Well, I just, these days I went to City Market and they really only had an extra fine, which I didn't get, or a coarse, I think. So I just got the middle grind. what I would like to do, because I just bought myself a grain mill for my attachment for my KitchenAid, is I'd like to find how I could get some really good corn and grind my own. Because it's supposed to be so much better to grind your own grains, and you have more control of what everything tastes like because you can pick out different grains. So that said, that'll be my next upcoming project, to think about more of that. But if the problem now is everybody is baking.
So Adele,
Yes.
this is
Wow.
this is the current consistency of my.
You know, that's good. Now I want you to put it on a board, like I did right
Yep.
here. Put it on a
Okay.
board and let it set up.
Aha. Okay.
And after it, so you have a choice of doing it that way, or you can, you know, once it cools off a little more, or even after. Let's say you put it on the board and you decide, oh, I don't like it. I want little round patties. Take it in your hand and reform it. One time what I did for, I was making this for a special dinner for Valentine's Day, and I took a cookie cutter in the shape of hearts. You know, and if you, although we're all kind of older, probably the only one that has kids around to eat any of this is Barbara. You know, if there's a certain shape that your kid likes, or Megan maybe looks like she's younger too, you could make their favorite shape. Or, you know, if you have alphabet cookie cutters, you can put their name in it, you know, make it in shapes of their name.
I'm assuming you flour the board first.
No, it won't stick.
Yeah.
Won't stick.
Can I show you my consistency? I'm worried.
Yes, you're worried. Don't worry.
It looks loose. Is it loose?
Okay, so did you, because I made a mistake, did you put in more meal?
Yeah, I put in
Semolina?
like 3 cups of semolina flour at this point.
Okay, well, listen to the recipe and put the other one in.
Oh.
You can, or at least half. Yours is, when you see, once it cools down, it does thicken up.
All right.
So, and it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's at 1-to-1.
Okay, that's what it's supposed to be.
So we did 3 cups. We should do 4.
Yeah, so I'm just letting that, and I've just got this. And then, by the way, you can make these, and if you have a little toaster oven, heat them up in a little toaster oven. Or if you can have them for breakfast. Okay, I'm going to put a little cheese on this. Maybe I should put a little sauce on this too. Just give me a second here. I happen to have some Delamore sauce in my refrigerator. I'll just heat it up for a second. Did I already tell you I love doing this from my own kitchen because I have everything?
You did.
So you just fried your Roman gnocchi in the brown butter?
Well, I just used up the brown butter. Once that was absorbed, then I put a little olive oil in. My preference for this is to have it be as crispy as possible. So I usually put oil on both sides and put it in a hot oven, and they get nice and crisp. But, like, I have a friend, and she likes everything mushy. So just as much as I go out of my way to make things crispy, she wants it soft. Like, I just gave her some biscottis, and they were once baked biscotti. She didn't toast them on me. She doesn't like them like that.
They
But
were
I love them
monoscotti.
like that. So you're going with the patty method, huh, Mark?
Well, for now, right?
Yeah. And I like to keep them, you know, a little thinner.
Right now, this is what I have.
Right. But you can, so if you want to make them flat like I did, or you want to cut them into shapes, then you want to roll it out more evenly. But
Yeah,
if you're going to make them free form by hand, please do take your time and just make them individually.
well, I'd like to be able to roll them out, but they're still very warm and sticky.
Right. So what you can do is you can put a piece of parchment paper over it and or just plop your hand down on them and get them a little flatter,
Yeah.
and then take a rolling pin. So
Should have put the parchment underneath.
a little bit of sauce. And a little bit of cheese. I'll let it cool for a minute. Way too hot. Gotta wait a minute here. This is the worst part, is waiting. This again is something that you can make totally ahead of time.
Yeah.
And you know what Italians do a lot too is, say you had a little bit of a leftover chicken or pork or any sort of, protein like that. Put that in the tomato sauce and put that on top. So you would have a marinara with some other protein in it. Very filling. Everybody is quiet now.
What's the difference between polenta and this dish? Is it just that you're using milk rather than water, or? Okay.
You're using milk. You're putting the egg in. You don't put the egg in polenta.
Right.
If you're having it up as porridge.
Mhm.
And you're eating it all at once, whereas this is you're cooling it and then you're doing something else to it, whatever you want.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like the difference between having hot oatmeal and so I actually took this idea, and when I'm trying to be better about my eating in the morning, I don't necessarily want to make oatmeal every day fresh, but making it and heating it up is disgusting. So what I do is I will make oatmeal just the way I did this in the pan, and then I'll roll it out onto a board, and I let it cool, and I cut it into shapes, and I bake it in the oven, and then I put it in the toaster whenever I want it, and I'll make that like for breakfast. I'll just use it as a piece of bread.
There's a New York Times recipe for baked oatmeal that's quite good.
And
You
you
do
put
it
it
in
in the oven?
Yeah, you mix it all together, put it in an 11 by 13 or 9 by 13 pan, and bake it. And then you can cut it in squares when you're ready to eat it.
But then you just eat it right then. How does it taste heated up?
It's fine. It works quite well the next day and the next day and the next day.
Well, is anybody else trying this gnocchi, or is it just me?
Mine aren't quite ready yet.
Okay, yours will take a little more time because they're going to be not as dense as this, but I think they're quite good. People really like them, and certainly anyone who's gluten-free really likes them. So, Joy, how did your experiments work? I think she's there. She's on mute. I don't see her face. Maybe.
Hi.
Hi.
Isn't that great? They were delicious. I have actually, there's pretty much nothing that I've ever made that I haven't been able to adapt quite easily to vegan. I mean, some things don't taste exactly the same, like the Parmesan doesn't taste like real Parmesan, but it's pretty
Okay.
yeah, but the gnocchi was great, and I've made gnocchi before, but I've never done it with flaxseed. It's a little. I think maybe that's why it was a little thick. I might use a little bit less of the flaxseed mixture next time. I'm going to experiment a little bit to get it just the right.
Well, as long as they stayed together and didn't fall apart in the pan, that's always like, okay, that's bad, real bad. So I'm glad somebody remembered I didn't put as much egg in as I should.
Thank you. It was great. Really
Oh,
great.
you're welcome. So does anybody else have any questions?
I think we do.
When is the next cooking class and what are you making?
Well, we're in February, we're doing Stanley Tucci's carrot cake recipe. The reason for that is Stanley Tucci's program on Netflix is coming out in February. What is it? What is it called, Barbara? Is it? Oh, you're muted. There you are. Okay.
I can't remember, but I can look it up real quick here.
I think it's like, now, I don't know, Stanley Tucci goes to Italy or something.
Yeah, something like that, or travels, something like
Mhm.
that.
So this is what they look like now. These round ones are the Roman ones.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you just getting ready to eat yours now, Mark?
Yep. Crispy on the outside, kind of not, I would say not cooked on the inside yet.
Well, no, they don't cook all the way through. And normally this would be soft all over. I am just recommending that I bake them in the oven and that dries them out.
Well, I'll
So,
try that with the next batch.
yeah, well, you probably have plenty there right now.
Yeah, I've got plenty. Well, the next cooking batch.
Oh. Sherry, did you have any question?
No, I'm not sure with the rolling. I don't do that with ease yet. With the
Oh, you mean for the gnocchi, the real gnocchi?
yeah.
Okay. You mean for actually making the snake?
Yeah, after you make the snake and
Then
then
you cut it?
you
You
cut
mean
it.
forming the gnocchi with your fingers?
Yeah.
Well, there's my grandmother would always do it like this in the palm of her hand. So you can try it. So are you right-handed?
Yeah.
Take your thumb in your right hand. Take make that little gnocchi that you cut off of the snake. Make it into more of an oval. So
Okay.
keep it more elongated. You roll it into a piece that's here.
Yeah.
Like I'll show you.
Well, Adele,
Yes.
I have these that I haven't boiled yet.
Yes.
There are a whole bunch of different sizes and shapes. And I tried it and they all came out just fine.
Okay. Great.
So
But I made it more like a little turd.
Is there a certain size that you should aim for, or does it?
Yeah, I think so. And you want to try and keep for a consistent size. So if you roll that snake out to be the same diameter and you cut them about the same length
Right.
and you make them into kind of an oval, not a round, and
Okay.
you put that little oval lengthwise in the palm of your hand and take your thumb and roll it, you'll get that shape.
You get that. Okay. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you
thanks.
said that you wanna freeze them before you roll them?
No, I would take a whole tray, like that's what I'm going to do when we finish here. I'm going to fill this whole tray up like this. I'm going to stick it into my freezer. I can do that. So if your freezer is such that you need a smaller tray, then, put them on something much smaller that will fit in like this. Let them freeze individually. Then I have a nice container, just a second. I did have a really nice container. I don't know where it is now, But if you take any long flat like this, because they're very light, so you don't want to pile a lot of weight up on top of them. And I do also put little pieces of wax paper in between. And then when I go to cook them, do not let them defrost. Put them into boiling water, just like we did now.
Great, thank you.
Regarding the semolina gnocchi recipe, just to get it, in case people need to make a change to what's written on the recipe that we sent out.
Yes.
It calls for 4.5 cups of milk to 2 cups of semolina flour.
Yes.
That it looks like, at least from what Megan and Mark have been seeing, is that maybe the semolina flour should be more like, 3 or 4 cups.
Well,
2
I
cups of milk.
haven't had that issue in the past. I'm sorry that I had to use the corn this time. But let's just say that I don't think you can go too wrong with putting in a little bit more, but you will see once you make this now, and Mark, I can see he's going along at a fast clip here, it gets thicker. So as it cools, it does get thicker. But definitely at the first one, it was a mistake. Sorry, I apologize.
Right. Cooking is an adventure.
Mm-hmm. So that, and what's the date on that one, Barbara? I'm not even.
I think it was 7th, I think.
The semolina one?
No, the date on the
Tucci,
Stanley
carrot
Tucci.
cake.
Tucci. I haven't been able to get a date on it yet. I'm gonna go to see. I'm trying to go to CNN. See if I can get the actual.
Oh, you mean you want to I meant when the class was.
Oh, that.
I think it's February 7th.
It's February 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of like coincide that because he has another cookbook and then he's doing this tour, which, everybody when they go to Italy, like we happened to be in Sicily when, who was the guy who was the fat guy who went around eating odd foods or something? Do you know that?
Anthony
that guy?
Bourdain?
No, not Anthony Bourdain.
No.
There was somebody who ate just like weird things. Anyway, he was filming right there in the fish market in Palermo when we were there. And just a word for the wise that anyone wants to do this carrot cake with us, I always use a food processor. I am the queen of a food processor.
Yeah. Good.
So anybody else?
Will you send out that recipe ahead for when we do the carrot cake?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Good.
There are a couple extra steps that he has that makes it a little more complicated than a normal carrot cake, but it is very good.
Good.
So, is everybody sufficiently hungry and thirsty?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I might have a little glass of wine myself too.
Ready for more gnocchi.
Yeah.
And I have to make the gnocchis. You're right.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming
you.
along, and thank you, Adele, for it's interesting that sometimes you learn as much from mistakes as you do from doing it right. So like it really sinks in when something goes wrong.
Well, the big thing about when something goes wrong is do not panic. I mean, unless the house is on fire, don't panic. And I will tell you, one time I tripled a carrot cake recipe, tripled it. And carrots, there's oil, there's blah, 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 blah. I put them in the oven. And all of a sudden I said, I didn't put any leavening agent in it.
Oh,
And I said, what do I do? If I cook it like this, I'm going to have a brick. So I went, they had just gone in the oven. I took everything out of the pan, put it in a bowl, took the baking soda and said, okay, I'll take the baking soda and I'll mix it with vanilla, which will then make it into a liquid, which should mix up better in the carrot cake recipe. Now I always take my baking soda and mix it with vanilla and add
Hmm.
it to the recipe because they were the best carrot cakes I ever made.
really?
So,
So we will
But-
do that we will do that on February 7th then, right? We will
that's right.
mix the, okay, good. That'll be,
And we won't forget the leavening agent,
no,
because if not, somebody will remind me out there.
right.
So does anybody have any feedback for the three of you who actually did cook along with us? I'd be really interested to hear any feedback you would have. This is the first time, this is a maiden voyage.
It was great. It was really fun and easy. You're very relaxed, and it was totally a wonderful, fun experience. So thank you so much. And nice to see all of you. Haven't seen in a while.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it too. Got a lot of work ahead of me with the stuff that isn't done yet from the large recipes, but that's all right. I have a
Okay.
freezer.
This is when you wish you had a spouse around to help, or
Well,
at least a friend that you could invite in, but you can't do that in COVID.
Well, the spouse helps me eat them.
Oh, that's hard work. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it was also fun not cooking and just watching. It was equally, that was very enjoyable.
Thank you.
This was great. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Excited for it.
Yes.
All right, well,
Thank you all for coming and thank you.
Thank you,
Adele, very
Barbara.
much. Yeah.
see you
Thanks,
next
Barbara.
month.
Yeah.
Next month.
Indeed.
Okay,
Next month.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right, Sherry and Mark, but you better not